everybody. This is Benoit, and I'm so honored to be here on Zoom, but with Steve Pennisi, who is our visual artist for March 2026. So, Steve, you're a very special artist. Because I saw your work, I put them up and I lit them up, And I have to say, like, it's not only the technique, of course, is impressive, but the reason for your technique. Would you explain, like, quickly, like, what you do and why you do it?
Sure. Well, it started, I mean, like the whole thing when I got serious about art. So I was in advertising for years. I owned an advertising agency. And then I got to the point where I was just a Sunday painter and I really wanted to be more. And I realized that in order to do it, I had to sell the agency because I needed to have the flexibility and the freedom to make mistakes week after week, because when you're doing it just part time, you feel like I have to produce something. So you're never going to go that far out on a limb. And I always wanted to just own something as an artist, because, one time I was in the Sistine Chapel, and as you're walking through the galleries, you see painting after painting of all these really accomplished artists. And then after a while, they kind of like it all blends together. And then you hit the Sistine Chapel, and it's like, oh, I see. That's what makes this guy special. So it's kind of wanting to get a little piece of something for myself. And so I sold the business, and then I started painting. And then what it was like, I wanted to not, I used to be an illustrator. So, I mean, if I had an idea, it was usually just an inevitable conclusion. Like you start somewhere and it's loose and it's free. And then by the time I get to the end, it was finished, but I felt smaller as an artist. So then I wanted to find something that's going to keep me open, keep me moving and keep the ideas flowing through without having to commit right away. And so one day I was just, so for months, just playing around with paint and throwing it on the canvas, trying everything until something, might give me that aha moment. And then I was just sitting there and I was just bored and I had a plastic palette and the paint was all moved on it. I was painting with it. And then I was just peeling it off. And then I looked on the back side of the paint. And on the back side of the paint was something so much better than what I was doing on the canvas, because what was happening is like as you're moving your paint on the surface, stuff's happening underneath that you can't really see. And so the technique that I figured if I could capture that, how could, because, you could just do it and it would just be kind of random stuff and that might be pretty, but how could I get control over it? So I tried for weeks with trying to paint on different kinds of film. And I used acrylic, which is plastic paint. So plastic on plastic would release it. And I finally just found this film that you get at Michael's, which is just used for like Easter baskets and stuff. And so what I do is I take and I pour paint, and this series has been mostly black and whites. And I pour it, and I take squeegees, and I use all different kinds of tools, and I'm just messing with the surface and playing around with it. And then what I'm usually actually using is the other side of the paint. So when it dries, what you're seeing on the top, which is usually what people are really thinking, oh, that's what you're painting. It's not. I'm actually using the other side of it because it gives these halftone effects and it gives these kind of unbridled Jackson Pollock splashes and all this kind of stuff. And since I can see what I'm doing, because when I flip it, I know what it's going to look like once I put it on the canvas. And then when I'm ready to put it on, basically I just glue with spray glue on one side and then affix it to the canvas and then peel the film away. So what you're seeing on there is just pure paint. There's no film left or anything like that. And then it just gave me just like the ability to, if I was doing a piece, I know what it's going to look like. So it allows me to work like kind of like high wire, but with a net, because if I want to change directions and I think like, oh, this might look even better, I'll know because I have the dried paint and I just put it up and it's like, oh yeah, that's going to be, because I've switched paintings in the middle and gone into a totally different direction because it was just better. And a lot of times when you're just doing it traditional way, you want to do that and you do it and you kind of destroy your canvas, but a lot of times it just ends up just destroyed. It's not any better, and this just gave me a chance to, like I say, to try a bunch of different things and then build, kind of like a vocabulary. And one time there was a priest that actually was looking at it, or a pastor, and he said it looked like a poetic approximation. So it's like you kind of know what it is and you kind of don't, but you sense that there's something truly behind it, but it doesn't just resolve itself quickly and easily.
Right, right. So, I mean, from a layman's perspective, like I look at some of the paintings and I see there's a lot of precision and thought, and yet there's a certain aleatory element to it that's very appealing because, of course, in real life, like we don't control everything,
And
Nice.
that's what I found out is like with doing it, I would be surprised sometimes of what people would see in the paint because the nature of it is like I'm sitting there and in my studio, I have like pieces of paint all over the walls and I'm playing with them and peeling them and trying different pieces and stuff. But a lot of people, like when they see something, they'll see things that I'd never really even attended and stuff. And that's kind of nice. Kind of like if there's a great song, usually a great song has a certain mystery to it and a certain openness to it too. So it's nice to think that the viewer isn't going to just walk up to it and say, "Oh, there's a picture of a vase of flowers or something like that." That it kind of engages them a little bit more. And then it keeps me open and interested too.
Right. That's very important because you do this all the time. And so you want to
Yes,
like doing it, and keep
right,
like,
right. People have looked at it and they didn't know by looking at photograph because the chemical is making the halftones on the back. They don't know if it's photograph, if it's what, and stuff like that. And that I find is really nice because it's kind of like as a musician when you can bend a note. So it's kind of like even if it's representing something, it's just a little bit more interesting, because it's somewhere between totally finished feeling because of the halftone natures of some of the pieces and then the rest being splash and stuff. So that kind of interplay back and forth is kind of interesting.
fantastic. So, well, I'm very excited, and so should you guys. You should all be very excited to see this artwork, and see you soon.
Yeah, come on out. Can't wait to meet everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.